and I'm Hugo.
And I'm Jake.
And this is the Bible Reloaded.
It is again.
So today we're going to be beginning Leviticus because, of course, last time we finished Exodus.
Yeah, it's exciting, but not really.
Just so everyone knows, we are going to be skipping around a bit, mostly because a lot of these laws are either uninteresting or copies of laws that are talked about earlier or later, and it really repeats itself a lot. So we're going to skip around to try and make this as easy to get through as possible for both you and us.
Yeah, so we'll let you know when we're skipping stuff, and then if anyone has any questions or comments or anything about stuff we skipped, down in the comments, because that's how we roll.
Yep, so Leviticus chapter 1. The burnt offering. The Lord called to Moses and spoke to him from the tent of meeting. He said, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when anyone among you brings an offering to the Lord, bring as your offering an animal from either the herd or the flock. If the offering is a burnt offering or from the herd, you are to offer a male without defect. You must present it at the entrance of the tent of meeting so that it will be acceptable to the Lord."
So, no Down syndrome cows?
Nope, no limps, no weird faces, whatever.
Oh.
Verse 4. You are to lay your hand on the head of the burnt offering, and it will be accepted on your behalf to make atonement for you. You are to slaughter the young bull before the Lord, and then Aaron's sons, the priests, shall bring the blood and splash it against the sides of the altar at the entrance to the tent of meeting.
Oh, that is horrifying.
Just slaughter it and put its blood on the walls of the altar.
Why does God want that? I bet he's just up there, he's like, look at these crazy sons of bitches. They'll do anything I ask them.
Verse 6. You are to skin the burnt offering and cut it into pieces. The sons of Aaron, the priests, are to put fire on the altar and arrange the wood on the fire. Then Aaron's sons, the priests, shall arrange the pieces, including the head and the fat, on the wood that is burnt on the altar. You are to wash the internal organs and legs with water, and the priest is to burn all of it on the altar. It is a burnt offering, a food offering, an aroma pleasing to the Lord. Okay, so nextly we're going to move on to chapter 2, which we're, of course, going to skim over. It's basically just talking about the grain offering.
And when you do that, it's yeastless bread, and it's got to be mixed with olive oil. God really likes olive oil. And then the next, chapter 3, because we're totally skipping chapter 2, it's called the fellowship offering. It's basically the same as the last chapter, chapter 1, the burnt offerings. But you don't eat the fat or blood. Again, it's quite literally the same thing.
Yeah.
It's really boring.
And then chapter 4 is the sin offering. The sin offering talks about various sins and how to atone for them. Every single way to atone for the sins, regardless of it, is pretty much slaughter a bull.
And splash the blood on stuff. Then after that is chapter 5, which is basically don't bear false witness. And then they go into very specific details like don't lie. And they're like, okay. Or kill a bull.
Yep, that's it. Then the guilt offering, blah, 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 grain offering again.
Yeah,
again,
and then they repeat themselves for a little bit, and then we keep skipping forward because this is bullshit.
So now we find ourselves at Leviticus chapter 10, the death of Nadab and Abihu.
And for reference, those are Aaron's sons.
Yes, and they are the anointed priests of Israel at this point.
Right.
Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu, took their censers. They put fire in them and added incense, and they offered unauthorized fire before the Lord, contrary to his command.
So God apparently had a conversation with them before, like, hey, don't light any fires in those. And they're like, nah, fire time.
I like that it's unauthorized fire, which means that the default is unauthorized. So you're like, hey, God, I'm freezing to death. It's the desert. It's night. Can I light a fire? I don't know if I'm feeling it tonight, guys. You light the fires, that's a lot of light pollution, and then it makes it really difficult for observatories to see the sky. It's really not cool of you to do.
There's 0 observatories where we don't even have any. Glass hasn't been invented yet.
Well, it might be soon.
Not soon. Not at all. Relative to us, not soon.
Well, for me it's soon. That's what matters, really. Verse 2. So fire came out from the presence of the Lord and consumed them, and they died before the Lord.
I always like stuff like this, because it's when God directly kills somebody, and then you can point at it, and that's why we read this. Yeah. So it's Leviticus chapter 10, just read the first few lines. God directly murders 2 people for lighting a fire.
Yeah, I told you not to light that fire. You want some fire? Here's some fire.
Yeah, well, fuck you with fire.
And he consumes them in flame, and they presumably burned to death like that monk in front of the Capitol building. Verse 3. Moses then said to Aaron, this is what the Lord spoke of when he said, among those people who approach me, I will be proved holy. In the sight of all the people, I will be honored. And that's set aside a little bit. Seems as though in the original Hebrew it may have been some sort of poem or
it's usually it's when they're in quotes like that, there usually is some sort of prose.
Aaron remained silent. Moses summoned Mishael and Elzaphan, sons of Aaron's uncle Uzziel, and said to them, "Come here, carry your cousins outside the camp away from the front of the sanctuary." So they came and carried them, still in their tunics, outside of the camp, as Moses ordered. So the skin burnt, but the tunics left unscathed. You don't want to waste a good tunic. That's one thing God knows. Not going to waste any tunics. Then Moses said to Aaron and his sons, Eleazar and Ithamar, "Do not let your hair become unkempt, and do not tear your clothes, or you will die, and the Lord will be angry with the whole community."
Do not mourn your friends.
Just fucking move on.
Move on.
They had it coming for lighting that fire. But your relatives, all the Israelites, may mourn for those who the Lord has destroyed by fire.
You can watch the others mourn. Do not mourn for your friends.
Do not leave the entrance to the tent of meeting, or you will die, because the Lord anointed oil on you. So they did as Moses said. Then the Lord said to Aaron, "You and your sons are not to drink wine or any other fermented drink when you go into the tent of meeting, or you will die.
Do not drown your sorrows. I want you to own this. I want you to feel it. I want you to experience every moment of melancholy you can."
Verse 10. Moses said to Aaron and his remaining sons.
What a shitty line. And his remaining sons.
Yeah, just
because the other ones have been burnt to death.
In case you forgot. Said to his remaining sons, Eleazar and Ithamar, "Take the grain offering left over from the food offerings prepared without yeast and present it to the Lord and eat it beside the altar, for it is most holy."
Eat raw grain now.
Okay, so after all that happens, they eat some ceremonial food, and it's uninteresting. On to chapter 11, clean and unclean food. This is just where God is telling them what food is clean and unclean.
And I find it very interesting.
Yeah, to anyone who doesn't know, this is what you would consider kosher or non-kosher.
Yeah.
If you didn't know. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Say to the Israelites, of all the animals that live on the land, these are the ones that you may eat. You may eat any animal that has a divided hoof and that chews the cud." There are some animals that only chew the cud or only have a divided hoof, but you must not eat them.
That's so specific.
That is specific, but I would think, that's enough. That's the commandment. Only if they have these two things, if the Venn diagram of these two things, divided hoof and choose cud, the center part is what you can eat. That would have been enough, but no, now we got to list specific animals. The camel, though it chews the cud, does not have a divided hoof. It is ceremonially unclean for you. The hyrax, though it chews the cud, does not have a divided hoof. It is unclean for you. The rabbit, though it chews the cud, does not have a divided hoof. It is unclean for you.
To be fair, it doesn't have any hoof at all.
Yeah, I'd like to think then he's like, "Is that enough examples? I don't know. I don't know if I get it yet. Oh, let me give me some more. The pig, though it has divided hoof, does not chew the cud. It is unclean for you. You must not eat their meat or touch their carcasses. They are unclean." Yep. So,
rabbit and pig are both delicious.
Yeah.
Never had camel or hyrax, though.
I don't even know what a hyrax is, to be
I'd eat the
completely
shit out
honest.
of a hyrax steak, though.
Yeah.
I'd try it.
Verse 9. Of all the creatures living in the water and the seas and the streams, you may eat any that have fins and scales, but all creatures in the sea or streams that do not have fins and scales, whether among the swarming things or among all the other living things in the water, you are to regard as unclean. Yeah, this is, of course, in reference to not being allowed to eat shellfish.
Yeah.
It's another kosher thing.
And then it says that you can eat some birds, but not other birds. That's really arbitrary. It's just like, these are the birds your car is unclean. The eagle, vulture, black vulture, red kite, any kind of black kite, any kind of raven, owl, screech owl, gull, hawk, little owl, a little owl. That's relative. What if it's a big little owl? Like, what if it's like, it's the little owl kind, because it's biblical kinds, but it's like bigger than normal? Can you eat that one?
I don't know. I think there's probably a lot of discussions that were had about that. Like, should we eat it? I don't know. It's kind of in that gray area, so I'd say no.
Yeah, you can't eat a cormorant, a great owl, white owl, desert owl, osprey, stork, heron, or hoopoe. Yeah. And you can't eat the bat.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. They
That's
just
not
talk
a
about
bird.
a lot of stuff. It's yeah, the Bible regards bats as birds, if you didn't know, so there's another check mark for things that are in the Bible that aren't scientifically accurate.
Yeah, and then it says you can't eat flying insects except for locusts, katydids, crickets, and grasshoppers. So, kids, go out and eat some locusts.
Yep, totally cool. Anyway,
actually, John the Baptist eats locusts.
Yeah, it happens. Okay, then chapter 12, purification after childbirth.
Basically, cut baby dicks.
Yeah, it talks about circumcision, but it also talks about not having sex with the woman for a certain amount of time, depending on if it's a male or female.
I assume that's a health reason that they threw in there, like a provision.
Oh, I would assume so.
But
you know,
I don't know.
You don't want to shove things into vaginas after they've been torn, V to A.
That's a rule to live by. That's going to go on my tombstone. No context. Don't shove things in vaginas that have been torn V to A.
Okay, then chapter 13 is regulations about defiling skin diseases, and it basically, actually interesting, talks about basically quarantining someone until you discover the severity of the illness. And we've talked about it before, the fact that religion was used to carry on information before there were other ways of doing it, and religion was a good way of getting this sort of thing through to make sure people followed it. They didn't know why it necessarily worked, but they knew they had to follow it, and this could have contributed to the fact that religion is so prolific as it is today. Groups that did have these kind of rules, even though there may be
out more people because they could communicate their findings.
A group selection sort of thing using religion, and it's pretty interesting. Richard Dawkins has some stuff on it, as people know.
And just so you know, anyone with a defiling disease must, quote, wear torn clothes, let their hair be unkept, cover the lower part of their face, and cry out, unclean, unclean, as long as they've remained unclean, and they must live alone and live outside the camp. So you're literally like a dirty hobo pariah.
Yeah.
I like it.
That's still true in some communities in the third world.
Yeah.
So, chapter 14, this is the cleansing of defiling skin diseases, and this is interesting. This is basically how they're saying, this is how we're going to cure your leprosy or other skin ailment.
Yeah.
So anyone with acne, maybe take some notes.
Yeah, and also any medical students or doctors that listen to the show, we need you to pay attention because this could save lives.
Yeah. The Lord said to Moses, there are regulations for any diseased person at the time of their ceremonial cleansing when they are brought to the priests. The priest is to go outside the camp and examine them. If they have been healed of their defiling skin disease, the priest shall order that 2 live clean birds and some cedar wood, scarlet yarn, and hyssop be brought for the person to be cleansed. Then the priest shall order from that one of the birds be killed over fresh water in a clay pot.
Of course.
He is then to take the live bird and dip it together with the cedar wood, the scarlet yarn, and the hyssop into the blood of the bird that was killed over the fresh water. 7 times he shall sprinkle the one to be cleansed of the defiling disease, and then pronounce them clean. After that, he is to release the live bird in the open fields.
So you basically take 2 friends that are birds, you break one of their necks, get the blood, drain it out, dip the live bird in, sprinkle it at people, and then let that tormented bird go into the nature to probably hang itself. Do birds hang themselves?
It should.
It should. It's
gonna have bird PTSD.
So that's how you cure disease in the Bible. I don't know. Don't do that. Please don't do that.
Let's go to chapter 17. Yeah, eating blood forbidden. As you would imagine, it just basically says, hey, don't eat blood, not cool. This is, of course, whether they know it or not, because of blood-borne pathogens, and not good for you.
Yeah, also it's kind of gross in its grisly imagery.
Yep. But now we get to the crux of this episode, the part we've been waiting to get to.
God, we power fucked through that first half. Yeah. We're already in chapter 18 of Leviticus.
Yeah.
That is how much bullshit is in the beginning of this fucking book. All right.
Okay, so here we go. Chapter
so
18, unlawful sexual relations.
Yes.
The Lord said to Moses, speak to the Israelites and say to them, no one is to approach any close relatives to have sexual relations. I am the Lord.
I like how he's like, I am the Lord.
Yeah.
What defines close?
I don't know, because certainly Adam and Eve, certainly, because they had to.
Yeah.
Their kids.
Yep.
Jacob was married to relatives.
2 sisters.
Abraham was.
Yep.
I don't know. It's weird. Kind of hypocritical, but you get the idea. Moving on. Verse 7. Do not dishonor your father by having sexual relations with your mother. She is your mother. Do not have relations with her.
Why did that have to be written down? Is that a problem?
I like the reasoning. Because it'll dishonor your father.
Not because it's your mom! Fucking dude! Gross!
And I like the way it's worded. Just the way it's like, she's your mother. Don't have relations with her.
It should say, fuck!
Verse 8. Do not have sexual relations with your father's wife. That would dishonor your father.
So that's kind of the same thing, only it's stepmom this time, because obviously your dad gets a harem.
Yeah. Do not have sexual relations with your sister, either your father's daughter or your mother's daughter, whether she was born in the same home or elsewhere. So this is even saying stepsisters if not related. Which, that would get weird.
Yeah, that'd be, even if she's like really good looking and has a shining personality. You're kind of, you're living together, man.
Do not have sexual relations with your son's daughter or your daughter's daughter. That would dishonor you. So don't fuck your grandkids.
Is this a problem? That's the point. Like, is there so much sexual depravity in the Hebrew culture that they have to outline specifically? Like, the first one would have been fine. Like, don't fuck relatives. No, now we got to list those relatives. Don't fuck your grandkids, guys.
Granny needs it bad. Do not have sexual relations with the daughter of your father's wife, born to your father. She is your sister.
She's your sister. I like how that's phrased.
Do not have sexual relations with your father's sister. She is your father's close relative.
Your aunt. Don't fuck your aunt.
Do not have sexual relations with your mother's sister because she is your mother's close relative.
Same thing.
Do not dishonor your father's brother by approaching his wife to have sexual relations. She is your aunt. You just fucking said that.
I love Bible sex.
Verse 23, do not have sexual relations with an animal and defile yourself with it. A woman must not present herself to an animal to have sexual relations with it. That is a perversion.
What kind of animal sees a woman lying on the ground and she's like, come here, donkey. And the donkey's like, okay, I'm a donkey. I'm gonna fuck that because it's interested in me. No animal, like, sees a human woman and is like, yeah, I think that's fuckable. They just blindly hump. They're like dogs. They just kind of like jump on and like you gotta kind of let them in.
Yeah. Well, that's probably good for today. A lot of front-loaded bullshit and then some sexual stuff, so it was all right.
Yeah, man, there was just so much to get through because we didn't want to read all that to you. I'm sorry, but I don't know. We talked about sex for a while. That was good.
Yeah. All of you with boners, good for you. Don't fuck a donkey though.
Yeah, if you could take anything away from our show, don't fuck donkeys.
Okay.
Or any other hooved animal. Rabbits, I guess, are...
You can only fuck them if they both have split hooves and chew cud.
That's a good rule.
Yeah. All right, so I think that's about it. Follow us on Twitter, at Bible Reloaded or at Hugo Reloaded.
Check out our merch store and buy awesome swag. We have cool shirts. Hugo's actually wearing his TBR shirt right now. It's classy as fuck.
Yeah.
You guys want those. He's also got a keychain. It's pretty ballin'.
Also, you can donate if you want so we can get better equipment. We do have pop filters now, so hopefully a lot of that breathy wind noise will be reduced.
Yeah. And, you know, if you don't want to donate, that's cool. No pressure. We're still going to do the show. But you really should because you should love us enough to give us money.
Yep. Well, that's enough whoring of ourselves.
That's not enough.
So, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next week. I'm Hugo.
And I'm Jake.
And this has been the Bible Reloaded.
And next week we learn to make English toffee.